Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, my guest is Rob Goodwin. Rob, hi and welcome.
Well, it is absolutely my pleasure. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and I really appreciate you having me on. It's my honor.
That's awesome. So, Rob, can you share a little bit about your background with me and our audience, and also how you came to have all of these non-mainstream ideas?
Well, it's kind of funny. My story, I'm old and I've been doing this a long time, so I'll try to compress this down as quickly as possible. Turn a 30-year story into a 2-minute, description, hopefully. But yeah, I've been in the coaching and training business for about 30 years, deep in the trenches, as I like to say, and originally really steeped in the hardcore training and bodybuilding, vibe of the 90s. And that's kind of where I grew up. And then just kept growing as a coach and a trainer. And I've been doing this my whole life. And, when you're into that hardcore training culture, the stereotypes, it's about chicken and rice and, bodybuilding and all that kind of stuff. And I was really steeped in that lifestyle for many, many years as a coach and a trainer on that side of it. Never really had a desire to compete. And I promise this ties into my story and why this makes sense. But I sort of did that for years. And then I changed my nutrition from more of a traditional bodybuilding diet to, a paleo diet when that whole thing, caught wind back in the early 2000s. And I went strict paleo in about 2004 when it was just becoming a thing. And it was very life-changing for me because even though I was this big, strong, fit guy, I had a lot of systemic and chronic inflammation. I just didn't feel quite right. Things just didn't click. And I read a very obscure article from, of all people, a triathlon coach. And he talked about this bizarre caveman diet. And it just, my rational, logical brain, it just made sense to me. So I started down that road. And then that, of course, evolved. And, when you're doing any sort of an ancestral health diet approach, the word ketosis usually pops up. So I went down that rabbit hole. And roughly in 2010, I sort of, morphed from a paleo primal diet to full ketogenic diet. And then, as we all, I think many of us did, experimented with that to a degree and experimented with the super high fat version of it and then sort of started tweaking that. And then, lo and behold, in 2014, I opened up a new gym. I had a smaller gym and that grew. And then I opened up a new gym. And through the process of opening that gym, I got this weird bug where I thought, you know what? I've been on the other side as a coach and a trainer with people in the physique competition community for many, many years. Wouldn't it be cool if, in my 40s, I finally did a competition on my own? So I thought this will be a cool bucket list thing. It'll be a way for me to draw some experience and use that experience with my clients from all levels. So I decided to go down that road. And the cool thing is I thought, I've been doing this, my version of a ketogenic diet for several years, and I didn't want to step away from that. But it made perfect, logical, rational sense to me that you could have more of an animal-based, ketogenic, even carnivore diet and do physique competition at a high level. And so I thought, let's do that. Let's embark on that. So long story short, I competed pretty hardcore. I didn't just do the one show. I did my first show, did very well. I placed second, and this was in the NPC, which is sort of like the minor leagues of pro bodybuilding. So it was, it was a good group of people and I worked my ass off. But throughout that prep for that competition, I did it on more of a ketogenic diet. And it worked phenomenally. And this was a time where everyone attacked me and said, it just can't be done. You can't maintain, grow, build muscle. You can't be a bodybuilder, whatever that means to you, on more of a ketogenic or animal-based diet. And I'm like, well, none of that logically, rationally, or even from a physiological level makes sense to me. So I developed what I've been calling now for, a decade, my hybrid ketogenic bodybuilding style, which ultimately turned a little bit more on the carnivore side in 2019. We can talk about that. But everything in that I knew and everything that I was told me that you could do this on more of a primal ketogenic diet and have success with it. And I did. And I did very, very well throughout the course of the nearly 10 years that I competed. I had multiple class wins in the NPC. I earned a trip to nationals. At nationals, I didn't do as quite as well as I wanted, but I did place top 6. And at that time, that was among all the 50-year-old bodybuilders in the country. I placed top 6 and did very well. I had a phenomenal experience. And probably even a cooler story is I've been on the coaching end now of multiple dozens of clients who have also went on to do physique competitions. And I've never had anybody but one, and that's a unique circumstance. Something weird happened, but I've never had anybody place below 3rd place.
Wow.
And all of them, wanted to do it on more of a hybrid ketogenic carnivore diet. So it's a cool thing to be able to bring that to the table and say, hey, clearly my clientele are the people who love to train, who love to lift, who are really trying to better themselves and be their best genetic versions of themselves that they can possibly be. And I never thought so many people would want to do that on a ketogenic or carnivore diet. So that's kind of made me that guy. And I remember back in 2017, I started a Facebook group called Ketogenic Bodybuilding. That kind of became my brand. I thought like 17 people would join it. I really thought it was going to be this weird, anomaly, and nobody would really care except for this handful of freaks like myself. And it just absolutely exploded. And I was kind of minding my own business here in my gym in North Carolina. And out of the blue, I was literally getting coaching requests from all over the world. I mean, 13, 14 different states at that time. People were contacting me. I got 2 clients from Australia, 2 from Great Britain, 1 from Russia,
Wow.
1 from Spain. It was just so bizarre. I was like, clearly there are people out there interested in hard training
Yeah.
and not having to rely on an overabundance of carbohydrate. And just, that was kind of the history. And that's kind of my evolution. And that's what I do now. And my coaching business has absolutely exploded. And now I'm doing the YouTube thing.
Oh,
And
you started.
yeah, I really have focused more on the YouTube thing just this year. I was playing around with it, kind of uploading, just here and there. And now I've gotten a little more serious with it. And I had an audio podcast like on Spotify and iTunes
Yeah.
that also, to my wildest imagination, just crossed over. I think we're at 105,000 downloads. So
Wow.
that's also a testament to the fact that there are people out there
Right.
who
Interested in this.
they want to do this, and they want to do it on the lower carb carnivore diet. So I thought, doing what you do, I thought this, might be an interesting discussion, and maybe your listeners might find some enjoyment in the crazy world that I live in.
Absolutely. And there's not a lot of coaches who train in this way, right?
Right, right.
I mean, it's hard to find doctors, it's hard to find coaches, it's hard to find dietitians, it's very hard. If
Yeah,
you already are smart enough to have achieved, to have gotten to understand why the carnivore diet, you must probably, maybe you struggled with your health and nothing works until you finally figured it out, or you came at it from a different way. But the point is, once you know, you can't unknow, and now you have problems on your hand because
yeah, yeah.
it's hard to work with anybody, so we're all so grateful to have coaches that understand this, like such as yourself, that can help people achieve their goals, health or competition wise, physique
Right.
wise, using a carnivore diet. Would you say that you mainly use carnivore, or it is just generally very low carb?
Well, that's a great question, and it's a nice segue into my own personal evolution. As I was competing, I was doing rather well on more of what I would my hybrid ketogenic bodybuilding protocol. That's a mouthful, but that's what I was doing from basically 2014 up until my 2019 contest preparations,
Mhm.
and that included a lot of vegetable matter. And I honestly, I knew that the dietary fiber was not a necessity. It was not required by the human body.
Blasphemy. What are
Yeah.
you talking about?
And it just made logical sense for me. I was trying, when you're doing physique competition, you're ultimately always trying to improve. And as I went into my 2019 contest preparations, I had, a couple of big competitions that year. I was trying to earn a trip to nationals. And when I completely removed the vegetable element and just, went purely on meat and eggs, and there's a little bit of carbohydrate I bring in, but that's, we can discuss that because a lot of the hardcore carnivores and like throw knives at me when I talk about it, but that's not what they think. But anyway, I went to primarily like 90% meat and eggs. I mean, and that's how I did the whole prep. And in 2019, I really turned a corner, and I won every competition that I entered. I did qualify for nationals, and it was one of my best showings that I'd ever put out. And unfortunately, I couldn't go to nationals because of the craziness of 2020. So I had to put that, on hold. But it was a great contest preparation, and that's when I really dove in headfirst to carnivore, and everything about my physique improved. Everything about my performance improved. And these are terms that a lot of, hardcore weightlifters and bodybuilders use, but just my overall appearance, my muscles were more grainy and more defined, and I had deeper striations, and I was more vascular, and every possible level that improvement could come to play or come, to the picture actually occurred. And I'm not going to say I was amazed, because I knew deep down that this was the way to go. But I also noticed there was no bloat, there was no distension in my gut, my waist was tighter, my abdomen was tighter, I felt phenomenal. So that's just kind of where I've been from here on out. So my ketogenic bodybuilding protocol, if we're all being honest, really turned into more of a carnivore bodybuilding hybrid approach that I've been using ever since that 2019 program. And even though I'm retired now from competition, it's still how I eat today, and it's how I train. And even though I'm an old retired bodybuilder, I am a full-time coach, and I always want to make sure that I walk the walk, and I'm the best possible version of myself that I can be at any age, so I can be a good example to my family and my clientele. And I don't want to be that retired, athlete that just gets fat and, puts it all behind him. I want to continue to push the envelope every way I possibly can, as long as I'm able to draw breath. And so I look forward to every year that comes. And I want to be that 65-year-old freak, that is still strong and lean and can stand toe to toe with anybody in the gym, and can chase my grandchildren around the park and just be that crazy old guy. So I'm really looking forward to that. And it keeps me on my toes and makes me a better coach and a trainer to my clientele.
Absolutely. Happier too,
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. And where in North Carolina are you?
I'm in this sleepy little town in Western North Carolina called Hickory. It's just north of Charlotte, and it's just south of Boone, where Appalachian State University is. It's sort of wedged in between there in the valley. I'm from Florida originally, and ended up in North Carolina doing sort of this whirlwind tour managing gyms. And when we stumbled onto this area of the mountains, we just fell in love with it and ended up deciding to call North Carolina home. And we really do enjoy it here. We like the seasons, we like the mountains. So that's where we
Nice.
landed. And I have a private gym here, and it is a private gym. It's only one-on-one training by appointment. So it's kind of a cool luxury to have, and I do enjoy that. But now, because of the explosion of online training,
I was gonna
probably
say.
65% maybe of my business comes from online training, maybe more.
Yeah.
I just train a handful of clients that I really enjoy working with in my gym in the mornings, and then the remainder of my day is devoted to online training and having wonderful conversations with people like yourself. So
Yeah, and I'm so glad you started that YouTube channel too. As it grows, it's gonna become so fulfilling as well to have an even greater impact, and reach even more people. Because the thing is with what we do is that at some point there is a cap. You only have so many hours in a day, right? And this is why
sure.
for me, I'm always paranoid about if I slip a little bit with my YouTube content creation. I get really, really frustrated. I'm like, this is your full focus,
Right.
because sometimes I get a little bit extra coaching clients in a month, and that can take away from the content creation, and so I try to never forget where like the focus always is, in at least for me, because that's actually where you get the coaching clients too eventually from
Sure.
as
Sure. Yeah.
well. So, but yeah, coaching is very fulfilling, and you get to see how very similar. A lot of people are when it comes to their
Right.
struggles. Can you share a little bit of what you found in the struggles of your clients?
Well, I mean, we live in the greatest temptation culture, that we can possibly imagine. And, that transfers over to the general, psychology of people out there. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, for every 10 clients that I get, I might keep one or two longer term
Mm,
because it's just, I always talk about my bar napkin programming mentality. You could, if somebody came to me in a bar, for whatever reason, I'd be in a bar, and said, "Hey, listen, Rob, I heard you're a coach. You've had great success. What would you recommend somebody like myself do in order to get the best possible results that I could achieve my greatest genetic potential?" I'd say, "Sure, no problem." So I would jot down 4 or 5 things on a bar napkin and bullet points and say, "It's easy. We want to train in the gym. We want to lift weights. We want to do a certain amount of time devoted to cardiovascular training. We want to incorporate just the right animal-based diet based on your needs, goals, and genetics and training, background. And then there are some few, environmental things that we want to address as well, like sun exposure, environmental toxins, and these things. So these are the things that you need to concentrate on to really be the best version of yourself that you could possibly be. Here you go."
yeah.
And, it is kind of, easy to do that, but then it's the navigation, it's, following that map that's where the issue comes in. It's staying on the path. So, though I can draw you a map from point A to point B and say, here's the most direct path, it's navigating that rough terrain on a daily basis and, coming in front of all the struggles that you're going to face. I didn't tell you that you're going to have to wade through a creek and climb a fence and climb a mountain and get into a back alley knife fight with some hoodlums in an alley. And, so it's the everyday, navigation. So one good thing about having a coach, I believe my coaching mentality is I'm going to give this client what I feel is the most direct path for them to get the results that they have come for. I'm not going to let any dogma or zealotry enter into the picture. It's not about me because everybody's going to be a little bit different. I don't operate under one umbrella of ideology. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. Some of my clients have some carbohydrate intake, some don't. Some are higher fat, some are higher protein. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. But then the struggles when I'm dealing with these clients, and I keep telling them, listen, you stay in constant contact with me because navigating this terrain is going to be the hard part. It's easy for me to lay down the program and give them the protocol. But then when they're left to their own devices in this world we live in, that's when it all falls apart. So, you can't go into Home Depot and buy a freaking screwdriver without being tempted by, soda and chocolate and crackers and bullshit
Yeah,
at the checkout line.
that's true.
There's this insane place that my wife takes me to.
Okay.
It's called Home Goods. You ever heard of this place?
I
It's like
live
it's like
there.
another planet. It's like another
Yes.
planet.
My hubby's
Um,
scared of even driving by it because I'm like, just 1 second. He's like, there's
just one
no
second.
such thing as
Just
a one
hold on.
second for you.
So she takes me to this bizarre land called Home Goods. And so when she's done 3.5 hours later of finding very, very, attractable and affordable home products,
Mhm.
we have to go through this maze checkout that's almost like something at Disney World, right? So we're going through this maze to finally get to the final destination, hundreds of yards away to actually check out and buy this garbage. And through this maze, what are we looking at through the entire thing? You're going to get
Sugar.
400 candy bars, caramel corn, sodas, crackers, 4 candles, and then more soda and more candy and, 3 little figures, and then more soda. And it's just absolutely bizarre.
Wild.
That's everywhere we are these days. And then, you turn on the TV, we're inundated with it, conventional, centralized medicine is
Yeah.
telling us all the wrong things that we need to do, and we're being inundated with complete false bullshit constantly. So yeah, for clients, I use a phrase with my clients all the time that you have to be the freak in the room. I use
Yeah.
this phrase all the time. My clients are always bringing it up, and what that means is not necessarily aesthetically a freak, even though that can come into it. But no matter what environment that you're trapped in, you have to be that one outlier in the room that says no, and you're the freak. If you're at the work work environment, and Sally has a birthday party. Yay, Sally, good for you. But then you're drawn to that break room under that pressure, and here come the chicken nuggets and the cheese fries and the pizza and the bullshit.
Right.
And everybody says, oh, you can have just one, and they kind of push you toward that direction. And then here comes the cake.
Yeah.
And the one person that says, hey, that's not for me,
Yeah.
I'm doing something here and I'd appreciate it. And then everybody, pounds on that individual for not complying and being part of the herd.
Yeah.
And you have to be the freak in the room in any environment that you're drawn into, because unfortunately, we're still the minority. And unfortunately, I don't see any breaking away from that. So we have to recondition ourselves to be
Yeah.
a little bit left of center and, be the
Yeah.
freak in the room at all times.
That's how I can right away know who of my clients is actually gonna make it and who's not. You
Yeah.
know, I can tell. They don't necessarily have, I tell them you gotta be a rebel. You have to, like, the deck is stacked against you to get healthy in the United States and probably a lot of other countries as well. And so you have to be a rebel, or at least be willing to bring out your inner rebel, inner savage, inner beast. You have to become that person. And a lot of my clients, because they watch my YouTube videos, they already kind of know my mindset, and that's how they find me. They're already kind of open to that. And then I guide them through the process, and then I create a lot of like mini Goggins.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you get, that's what you need, nothing
Exactly.
short
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. I mean, I tell my clients, listen, I'm going to tell you what I think. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, because unfortunately, I'm probably the only one anywhere in your circle that's going to do that for you. But understand, anything that I'm asking you to do, I've done it and I do it every day. And I'm willing to at any moment, put on the blue Braveheart war paint, roll up my sleeves, grab a weapon, and walk through fire with you. And I'm willing to do that. And the one thing about me is my clients do know that I have suffered and I do suffer. And, I live beyond the cultural norm, and I'm willing to do anything with my clients to make sure they succeed, but they have to do the work too. I've had clients, pay for the coaching, get established. I get them set up on my app. I'm pouring through workouts, building them a program, working my ass off. And I've had clients that literally quit after a week and never did a single workout.
Wow.
Never prescribed any, tried any of the macros that I set for them, any of the recommendations that I set for them, never set up a Zoom call or a check-in, or never submitted a progress pic, because I think they realize, oh, you know what? You mean I'm not going to lose 10 pounds just by giving my credit card number? I actually have to do something. Because most influencers out there, and one of the reasons why I like you and I wanted to be on this show is because I think we're kind of similar in this regard. We're not going to just settle under some umbrella blanket ideology. We're going to tell people straight. And a lot of these influencers out there are like, I do carnivore this way, and it's only this way. And if you stray from that, you're doing it wrong, and you will be stricken from the records and stricken from every obelisk and, completely banned from the community. And we're going to tear
Yeah.
up your card.
They're
You know
like
what?
cult leaders.
They're
I
like
started
cult leaders. Hey,
they
listen, if you want to just eat meat, salt, and water, I think that's great if that works for you. But that's not going to work for everyone. And let me go ahead and tell you something else. And probably, 400 of your listeners are probably going to switch me off right now. A little bit of carbohydrate is okay for some people. And, I explain that to people all the time, and I still use a very small amount of carbohydrate at a very specific time for a very specific purpose. And I haven't died yet. It's okay.
The reason they get triggered is it comes from the mental weakness, and I understand it because I was there. Because if you have an addiction to carbohydrates, or to, any, or sweet taste, any kind of carbohydrate, right? If you're addicted to it, and then you're told that you can dabble with it, you can struggle with more cravings, right? So it's easier for you to just live in a world where carbohydrates are the devil, because it's easier for you to not touch it. And I agree, it is easier for people to not touch it when you do have an addiction. However, you can't live a life of fear. You have to understand the root cause of your addiction. And the problem is always that dopamine deficit that I've been talking so much about lately. Because we all have damaged our dopamine levels, our dopamine receptors over time. So now what you want to do is build it up. So we don't have so much of that fear anymore because we're athletes. When we're training hard, we've already reversed that dopamine damage.
Right.
And so
Right.
we're not living life in that dopamine deficit where everything is a trigger, right? And so even if I have a tablespoon of honey, I'm not gonna seek it out personally. I'd rather
Right.
not have that. But if I were to have it, it's not the end of my world, and I'm not gonna go off the rails, you
Of
know?
course not. Of course not.
And
No.
that's what I try to help people to kind of like get them to feel empowered, raise their dopamine levels. Their baseline dopamine levels should go up and their D2 receptor should go up. And once they get there, we still want to not overdo it with addictive foods, but at the same time, we're no longer living in fear from like, oh my
Right.
gosh, I touched a carb and now I'm going to go all out. You know, this all
Right.
or nothing thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, there are some out there that, based on their history, based on their background, if they have some carbohydrate matter, then they're going to go off on a carb bender, and you're going to find them in an alley somewhere covered in powdered sugar 3 hours later.
Right.
I get that, but other examples far outweigh those in my world. That, like, for instance, I'm working with this client now, and she was working with another coach, and she's competing at a very high level. And her former coach basically said, under no circumstances whatsoever are you to have any carbohydrate at all. And basically, that's what her coach's entire ideology and persona is built upon,
Hmm.
which is unfair to the client, because this particular client, if you're going to go on a competition stage,
Mm.
there is a point in that process right prior to you standing on stage where the influx of some carbohydrate is going to be absolutely necessary in order for you to present the best possible version of yourself on stage, to
Right.
be judged against your competitors that you're competing against.
To fill
So
out, right? To get that pump to
right,
fill out, you need it.
exactly. And
Yeah,
there is a very, very specific strategy to that. I do it with my clients who are going to have a photo shoot, who are
yeah,
going to go to a family reunion, who are going to, I have a client who's going to Vegas for a week, and on this one specific day, he's going to this pool party, and
yeah.
he wants to be absolutely jack ripped and amazing when he walks out onto that pool deck. And why not? So I have everything structured just right for him, to where when he walks out on the deck of that pool at that hotel,
He's
every eye
popping.
is going to turn to him, and it's his time to shine. And good for
Yeah,
him. The guy's 47 years old. Good for him. He's going to be
nice.
absolutely shredded.
Wow.
The problem is this competitor that I'm working with, I'm working the program for her. It's not about me. It's not about my ideology. It's about what can I do to make sure that she thrives and
Yeah,
has her moment. Where her former coach, it was about the coach. It was about my ideology. I do everything with fat and no carbs. Well, good for you. That's fantastic, chief. But
right.
what you're doing isn't doing a service to your clients. Now, and along those same lines, I do have clients that can't have carbohydrate, and
Mm,
that's fine. So we retool things for that specific client, and there are strategies and protocols for them as well.
yeah,
But it goes back to what we were talking about previously. We have to work in the best, the best for our clients, based on who they are, where they've been, and what they can handle, all their individual
yeah,
tolerances, their
yeah.
background. So that's what a coach is.
Agree.
And sometimes some of these younger people, it's more about clicks and follows than it is
Mm,
doing what's in the best interest of your client. And I think the fact that I've been doing this 30 years, and I know it's not about me, it's about them. That's that's how I keep my head clear, and that's how I sleep good at night.
love everything you just said. Gosh, I have so many things that I want to say. I'm still getting over the Rona, so my brain is still like, woo,
I'm
it's
so
a party
sorry. I
inside.
mean, yeah, and maybe your listeners might want to know, right when we first got on, I was like, I wasn't even sure we're going to do this today, because you're so sick. And you're like, yeah, but I'm doing it because you're a badass.
I am.
So
I
take
am.
note, everyone out there. You're following the right girl. She is a badass. So good
Yeah,
for
I don't
you.
like
Yeah,
to
sick with the
cancel.
Rona, and here we are pumping it out. I love it.
Thank you. Um, it's so crazy to me. So I started posting YouTube videos just about everything that I'm interested in, and it just so happened that I was interested in the carnivore diet, and I posted a video about the Harvard study. I think I was like the first one to do a YouTube video on it, so it got a lot of views, and I gained a lot of people from that and interview requests, and so I started growing really fast that way. but somehow the label gets attached to you, you know, like you're a carnivore doctor, which I don't mind it. I do think a carnivore diet is the optimal human diet or species specific
Yep.
diet.
Yep.
I really do think it's the best. So that's fine. But then people automatically kind of want to box you in and label you as something, you know? And so like if I even talk about calories, it's like it's taboo in the
Oh
carnivore
yeah.
community
Yeah.
to even talk about calories. 99% of my clients that come to me don't, the vast majority of them, they don't even think they need to count calories or that calories matter or that you need a caloric deficit to lose weight. That's how crazy the discussion has been happening in the carnivore community. And people are like, I couldn't believe that people actually believe that. Like they
Right.
forgot the basics. And it's like, no, that's why you're gaining weight on a carnivore diet when you should be losing weight. Or they'll lose a little bit of weight if they had a lot of weight to lose, and then they plateau for years. And it's like you're eating nothing but meat, you're improving your health. You should also shed any excess body fat because that's also inflammatory.
Perfect.
You know, it's just wild to me. Have you come across that as well, that
Oh my God. Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
that
And the funny thing is, you know, and there are some influencers out there, for lack of a better term, I don't know what everybody wants to be called, but that are, you know, the anti-calorie thing. And their thing is, you know, it's all about, you know, effective energy in, effective energy out, blah, blah, blah. Calories are inaccurate. Yes, in terms of measurement of output, it is fairly hard to have super accurate measurements from calories, the units of heat. However, let's be careful, because you do need to be in an energy deficit in order to get lean. You do. So,
louder?
so we can still use the calorie measurement. We just have to understand that we have to make sure that the numbers that we have prescribed to our clientele are accurate based on their intake and output, genetics, training style, whatever. So just because I tell a client who's, let's say that, you know, Sheila, my client, is trying to get really lean. And I say, okay, based on your training, your output, and we've tracked everything meticulously for the last 4 to 6 weeks, I have determined that I think we're in the area of 1,410 calories to put you in just the right deficit for you to free up unwanted body fat without suppressing hormonal output, which is the balance that we have to find in order for our clients to get real results. Does that mean it's exactly 1,410 calories? Maybe not. But as long as we determine that based on what she has gained or lost over the course of time, we've narrowed it down to that number and used it just as a tracking tool in
Exactly.
order to gauge progress, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I have over 100 clients doing some version of a program of mine, you know, currently. All of them nearly have been given a caloric ceiling based on what their goals are. And we determine that not just with some funky calculation, but we assess and check things out over time in real time and determine how much effective energy intake based on how much output equates to a deficit. And whatever that number lands on is the number that we use for tracking only. It's absolutely still something we can use, and it can be extremely valuable, because at the end of the day, if you tell a client, well, I don't want you using calories anymore because it's not accurate, we're all going to go on mass and volume. Well, most normal people are going to be like, what the fuck is that? You
Right.
know, I'm not used to that. I've got this tracker that I'm like, so once again, it's not about you, the trainer. It's about what do I have to do to make sure my client is getting the results. So yes, I'm going to meticulously make sure that the numbers that I create for my client are going to be the numbers that are going to have them in a slight energy deficit in order for them to burn fat and get lean, shredded, jacked, and ripped and amazing. The number may not be accurate, but is a number we can use to track progress. So
Exactly.
100%, I'm sick and tired of,
Yeah.
if you even use the word calorie anymore, we're going to, you know, completely tear up your card and have you, you know, removed from the scene. I'm like, well, then go screw yourself, because I'm going to continue to do that to make
That's
sure
so
my clients are getting the
stupid.
best
Yeah.
results. It's ridiculous.
That's I see that a lot. The pedantics, you know, coming from academia, there's a lot of that happening. Those are the people that never really make it big in the real life,
Right.
you know, in the world. You
Right.
gotta have emotional intelligence, fluid intelligence. You gotta be able to see the bigger picture and use the science and the technicalities as one tool, but not the end all be all. But I do understand also certain personality types, if you're on the spectrum of like autism or Asperger's, you know, it's harder for you to do that. You're a lot more focused on the
Right.
details. You're a
Right.
lot more focused on the technicalities, and your brain just can't see the bigger picture. So maybe that's a version of what's happening there. And so kind of like, I guess when I say it out loud, and you have to like remember that and kind of extend grace to those people.
Yeah.
But it is important that our audience understands that calories are very much a very important element of this. This is like the number one thing that I do on day one, and I see consistent weight loss in all of my clients, like clockwork.
Right.
It works every single time.
Yep.
It's just basic math.
100%. I mean, I've got people, you know, the majority of my clientele, I'd probably say 5% of my clientele compete. And the cool thing about that is that we're not talking about like magazine cover pro bodybuilders. We're talking about moms, dads, businesswomen, businessmen, grandparents, people who, for whatever reason, have decided I've built my business, raised my kids, done whatever. Now it's time to do something for me. And wouldn't this be a cool thing to do to say, you know, I did this and you can never take that away from me. So I get to work with these people. Like most of my competition clients are over 30, many over 40.
Nice.
And to see a 43-year-old woman who's a mother of 3 make this unbelievable transformation, and we dial her in to look the best that she's looked since maybe high school or even ever, to stand on stage at 10 a.m. on this date 6 months from now. I mean, it's a meticulous process, but working in the trenches with your clients and taking them through this process and achieving that, I don't think there's anything more rewarding. I get so much more of a high when one of my clients is messaging me and saying, holy shit, I just placed second in my first competition and it was amazing. I get so much more out of that than when I won my class multiple times as a competitor myself, because it's just the most amazing feeling. So yeah, I mean, you know, you have to do whatever it takes to make sure that you're giving the greatest amount of benefit to your client, and, you know, and I've used very specific caloric measurements with every one of these people. Now we understand that, you know, the types of food we eat are important for sure. You know, but you could also say the same thing about dietary fat, you know, the way we were talking about the people who are dogmatic about the anti-calorie thing. You know, one of the things that back in the, I don't know, maybe 2015, when the keto wave just really exploded and went completely insane, that's when I started working with people more remotely. And it kind of got out that my ketogenic approach was more high protein, more moderate fat, and low carb, but the carb intake was very strategic. And at that time, everybody was taking in like 70, 80% fat and saying it was fat, fat, fat. You got to eat fat to burn fat and all that horse shit. And I was saying, that really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You know, so many variables go into that. So at that period of time, I got kind of known as the keto fix-it guy. People would come to me and say, listen, I've been doing this crazy high fat diet. I lost a little bit of weight at first. Now I'm gaining weight. And I'm like, almost in every case, I brought the fat down, increased the protein, and made all of these meticulous adjustments in those ratios. And across the board, it always did better for them. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, human physiology, nutrition, training, it's still kind of the Wild West. There are still things that we're not sure about, and we're always learning. And, you know, a good example would be, you know, I tell this story a lot, but I had this woman, she was in her mid 40s. She was doing her first physique competition in the bikini division. And she was just killing it. Just never missed a workout, did everything to the letter, did everything perfect. And we were about 6 weeks out from competition. That's freak out mode when you're a competitor. You're really, you know, you're suffering, you're freaking out, you know. And she messaged me and she said, listen, Rob, I don't know what's going on, but even at this energy deficit, I haven't dropped an ounce in weeks. Nothing is changing. I feel like shit, and I'm doing everything exactly as prescribed. And I said, okay, I got you. I know what this means. So I sent her a very detailed message. I said, listen, here's what I want you to do. I want you to eat 3 rice cakes. And on those rice cakes, I want you to drench them. And I mean, drench them in honey, raw honey. And then I want you to cover them in salt. And I want you to eat that. And then I want you to get a banana and I want you to drench that in honey. Then I want you to eat that. Okay. And then I want you to drink 16 to 18 ounces of water. And then I want you to go directly to bed. I want you to do this right before you go to bed.
Are you forcing the whoosh effect?
So she sent me a message right after that. She said, you know, excuse my language. She said, exactly, are you out of your fucking mind? She's like, I'm trying to win a competition here, coach. You know, I'm like, trust me on this. Just do it. She's like, okay. The next morning, I get up very early. I get up at 4 a.m. and I get up and I'm getting ready to drive to the gym. And I get a message from her at 5 a.m. And it said, I don't know what kind of voodoo horse shit you're doing over there, but I woke up this morning 1.5 pounds lighter, striated, full, vascular, flew out of bed, felt amazing, and I cannot wait to go train. I'm like, nice. Yeah, I know. I told you it would be that way. That's what I do. And I do this kind of stuff all the time with people. And, you know, and then when I tell stories like that, occasionally I get the keto or carnivore zealot that shoots laser beams through the computer at me and tells me I'm insane and how dare I prescribe carbohydrates at any point ever. I'm like, would you just shut the hell up? Listen, right. We know what we're doing here.
Yes.
And even when I tell people that I use some carbohydrate around training, you know, I use that phrase a lot, I get the same kind of bullshit. I'm like, listen, pal, at the end of the day, even when I do use a decent amount of carbohydrates around training, carbohydrate only takes up 3 to 6% of my total energy intake for the day.
Right.
And you're going to tell me that can't belong in your little community or club now? I mean, that's just exquisite bullshit is what that is. And, you know, I tell people I'm a healthy, hard training male, you know, that's been training for 35 years, a lot more muscle than fat. And a little bit of carbohydrate around training works wonders for me. And there's several reasons, very specific reasons why I do that and why I do that for several clients. And then I explain that to them. And for some reason, it really doesn't make any sense because they're entrenched in this ideology that there's only one way and it's their way or the highway. And, you know, sometimes you get one bad heifer that jumps the fence and leaves the herd. You got to let that one go and then focus on the ones that matter. So.
Yeah. And it has to do also with the active discouragement of physical activity in the carnivore community. It blows my mind. How are you, a health expert, actively discouraging cardio? Like, just take away the health and the expert, please. Like,
oh man, are we on the same page or what? Yeah, the anti-cardio people. Now we're getting the anti-training at all people. That's become a new thing that's popping its head in this industry is don't lift weights, don't go to the gym, that's the next one. So hold on tight for that one. That's really going to make your blood boil.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I still do cardio. I love to ruck. I'll put, 40, 60 pounds on my back. I will get out in the heat, get that sun exposure, go out on trails. I'll do that for 30, 40 minutes, 3-4 days a week. It's some of the best time of my day. The mental acuity, everything about it makes me feel better. I feel healthier. There's no downside to that whatsoever. Yeah. And guess what? Now I want you to hold on to your skirt for this one. Okay.
Okay.
They'll say, don't ever do cardio to burn more calories. Why the hell not? Why not? If the key to getting lean is being in a slight energy deficit and putting a little bit more out than what you take in, then how is it if I go out and do some cardio and expel some more energy, so the end result is I get fucking leaner? Why would that be a detriment? There's no downside to anything that I've done. And then I spend 30 to 40 minutes doing super high intensity, low volume training in the gym, lifting weights, busting my ass, building as much metabolically active muscle tissue as I could possibly can, because that should be the goal of every human being with a pulse drawing oxygen, period. It's insanity to me. It's insanity.
It blows my mind. I can't even begin to counter that, because Yeah, like it comes from a place of fear, you know, of like, you know, what I've been told is like, oh, because it makes us a little bit hungrier. That's because you're so deconditioned. Get somebody that is so sedentary and have them move a little bit. They're going to be so exhausted, they're going to want to eat. But the moment you actually recover and get better, the higher your baseline fitness level is,
Yes.
the more of a powerful anorexic effect it has. I struggle to fit my calories in. You know, if I ran half a marathon, you think I don't want to eat for like 2, 3 hours afterwards. I'm
Right.
like, you know, and then when I eat, I just want to, I get very stuffed very easily. And I know it's because of my fitness level, you know?
Right.
That's
Right.
what they
Yeah.
don't get. They don't get the dopamine. They don't get the,
Nope.
you know, they try to tackle the addiction from a fear-based perspective as opposed to an empowered perspective,
Right.
you
100%.
know? And
100%. Preaching
that's,
to the choir. Absolutely. It's just insanity to me. And, you know, sometimes you're going to have to be uncomfortable. Sometimes you're going to have to suffer a little bit. I love it when I get a client who says, okay, I've abused myself for the last decade and I'm hiring you to get me lean and fit and active. I'm like, okay, fine. And then 3 weeks into it, they're like, I'm hungry. I found myself being oddly hungry today, and I'm very uncomfortable with that. And I'm like, listen, pumpkin, there are going to be days where you're going to be hungry. Okay.
and
You're
that's
going to have to
okay.
work through that shit
Yeah.
and understand that there will be some discomfort. And ultimately, if you truly want to reach your absolute genetic potential, and you're using words to me like super lean, ripped, jacked, peeled, etc., there will be suffering. And that's okay. Get used to that experience. It'll make you a stronger human being. There's
Yeah.
a phrase in the nautical community because that it goes like this. They say strong waters make tough timber. It's an old nautical term meaning the more abuse you're taking for that from that, you know, hard tide hitting the hull of your wooden ship, the wood of that boat actually gets harder because of the
Yes.
abuse. Sometimes we have to push ourselves through hard times in order to become out stronger and hardened and more
Yes.
tempered as a human being. It only makes us better. I've never taken anybody to their ultimate goal, whether it be on stage or that photo shoot where they're the leanest they've ever been or the most muscular they've ever been, and they've never come to me and say, yeah, I look amazing, I feel amazing, but I really kind of regret the process. You know, nobody regrets the suffering, the hard work, the effort once the goal has been reached, because they emerge on the other side changed and somebody different than what they were. And but if you don't go through it, become that tempered human being, and you don't make that true change. So you have to walk through fire.
Yes. You froze for a second. Let me plug in my,
Complain about the suffering you endure on your way up
you
there.
froze for a second, and I think it's for whatever reason my internet wobbled a little bit, but you're back.
It probably got tired of me yelling.
No, no, my laptop is used to the abuse.
Yeah, yeah. Your laptop is probably like, dude, you know, you're getting a little too worked up here. Let's take
Right,
it down a notch. All
right.
right. It's like,
Let's
you know,
yeah, yeah,
Tuesday
yeah.
afternoon here, dude.
Let's
Relax.
make
All
it a
right.
little more palatable. Nobody wants to hear what it takes. No, they all want the finished
Yeah.
product, but
Yeah.
once you actually tell them what it's actually gonna take, it's like, whoa, let me go see somebody else who's gonna tell me. I had a client once tell me that I think I'm not, and I gave her a lot of calories compared to my other clients. She was pampered. And she's like, you know, I think it's because I'm not eating enough calories. That's why I'm not losing it. It's like, no, you're not doing the workouts that like. You can't just follow the meal plan. You have to actually burn the calories with the workouts too to
Right.
create a caloric deficit. So she wasn't doing that. She's like, and then so she went with another program. I'm not gonna say who gave them some hormones and put them on more
Oh,
calories.
God.
Yeah, but obviously she did not lose weight at
Yeah.
all, and
Duh.
she fell off the crack. Yeah, so you know, I see
Yeah.
this happen so often. Like people don't want. Now, if I do a now I've learned my lesson. If I do a YouTube video that has cardio in the title, it doesn't get as many views as
Right.
something where it's like easy fitness, easy fix, lose it,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I wanted to triple my coaching clientele, I would just do some sort of an advertising gimmick where I say my revolutionary new program is easy and works like magic in just minutes a day. And If you sign up today, I'm going to shave that fourth installment of your easy pay plan and give you a bonus gift of the fat reducing thigh cream as a bonus. Click the link now. It's only good for the next 2 minutes. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. I would probably be a very wealthy man.
I agree.
But I will not do that. I am looking for the client that wants to walk through fire, that wants to eat lightning and shit thunder and do the work. And that's the client that I want. And if it's less, that's fine with me. You know, I do this to help clients get results. I enjoy the process. This has been my life for the better part of my adult life. And I will not change my, you know, character, you know, just to try to pick up a few more clicks and a few more bucks, because ultimately that's not the path to success. And I've recognized that for my entire career. I won't do it. I'm going to tell you, listen, it's going to require a lot of hard work. And if, you know, if I've got 10 people listening to me and 9 of them walk away saying, screw that, I don't want to have to kill myself, I'll take that one outlier that's like, bring it, bring it. That's who I want to work with.
Yes. I love that. And I have so many of those that, because like you, some people will drop off once they realize what it takes, you know, or they're not willing to bring out their inner savage in them to really do what it takes. And so but I have some that just from day one, they did the work, they changed their, everything. They stopped being people pleasers. They learned how to set boundaries. They started training harder and harder and harder, even when they thought I was crazy for telling them how hard they should train. They're like, you know what? Okay, I know you're insane, but I'm gonna do it. You know, and those
I like that person. Yeah,
those are the best. You know, and one of them is gonna be competing now soon.
Great.
Yeah,
that is fantastic. Yeah,
right. She owns a gym. And she was lifting weights and was afraid of doing cardio, and because of that she always struggled not being able to get peeled, you know, shredded. And then I was like, no, you got to also add in the cardio that's going to raise your pain threshold. You're not going to lose your muscles. You're actually going to go up in weights because now your pain threshold is higher. You're actually going to lift even higher weights. That's exactly what happened. She's like, wow, I cannot believe that all of these years, you know, of weightlifting, you know.
A competitor that doesn't do cardio is really missing the big picture. Cardiovascular training for the physique competitor, or the person who wants to acquire a physique comparable to a physique competitor, that cardiovascular conditioning aids in their overall conditioning, and it does change the physique, and it makes you more vascular. It builds healthy mitochondria. It's, you know, that is an element that does not need to be missed in terms of that contest preparation, or just, you know, the preparation that you're going through to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. It's a synergy, you know, and the other element that people miss is, if you look at the synergy of physique development, it's the training, it's the cardio, it's the diet, but it's also the recovery. And that's something that I preach a lot too. I think most people are grossly overtrained and they're putting in way too much and they're not recovering enough. And they'll spend these marathon sessions in the gym and they're doing 5-6 day splits, and all they're doing is overtraining and creating a deeper inroad into recovery. So one of the first things I do with nearly everyone is pull back their training volume, raise the intensity, and put a strong emphasis on the recovery element, because that's when you grow. You know, you compensate, you know, when you rest, you know, you train hard in the gym, you're creating damage. That's what you do. That's step, you create a systematic damage to the muscle tissue. Then while you're resting, you compensate. That's the recovery from that training session. Well, the goal is to ultimately overcompensate. That is new tissue growth. And in order to overcompensate, you have to give it an additional amount of time. You know, if you look at muscle building like digging a hole, when you're doing the workout, you're digging a hole into the soil from that baseline level of earth. Then when you're resting, you're filling that hole back up to level. That's compensation. Well, to pack a little dirt on top, new tissue growth, that is overcompensation. But let's say, for instance, like I still do, for me, I do a pro split where I'm doing certain body parts on certain days. And people say, oh, that's pro science, that's antiquated. Oh, is it really? Then why does 99% of every top level pro bodybuilder on the planet still do that? Because we understand that if I annihilate my legs on Wednesday, then there's going to be a period of time for not only compensation, then additional time for overcompensation. So I get the necessary growth elements. I stimulate growth.
Mm-hmm.
And then is that new level of growth, is it going to go away? No, it's going to sit there, providing I'm feeding the muscle,
Yeah.
and then it's going to be ready for me to destroy it again the following Wednesday.
Yep.
So,
That's how I
especially
train
for,
too. Yeah.
yeah, especially for the natural athlete. If you're not sauced to the gills,
Yeah.
which heightens your recovery ability dramatically and, triples muscle protein synthesis, if you're not doing, gear, then I think it's even more important to put a massive, massive emphasis on the recovery element. So I meticulously work with my clients to make sure that they're creating the greatest level of intensity in the shortest amount of time to be the most productive,
Yeah.
and then making sure that the recovery element is part of the process. And to your earlier point, cardiovascular training done right does aid in the recovery process. So
Mm-hmm.
it all works together synergistically. So, that recovery element is just as important as the training stimulus and the diet. So it all works together. So to be a
Yeah.
well-rounded coach, you have to be very specific about every element of the training process. And there are coaches out there that just don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And what we have also working in our favor is a carnivore or an animal-based diet also speeds
100%.
up recovery a lot faster,
Oh,
right?
for sure.
And that's
Yeah.
very helpful for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Carbohydrates, that's an energy component,
Yeah.
and, the old school mentality that bodybuilders had, especially like back in the 80s and 90s, of eating massively high carb diets.
Mm,
You can make an argument for them about the insulin element of that and the
mm,
anabolic factors involved with
right.
insulin. But for normal people, or people like you and me, or people who aren't, sauced to the gills in pharmaceuticals, the carbohydrate element is not necessary for tissue growth and the repair of cells and tissues. And, dietary fat as an energy component, protein is king. That's the key macronutrient that I put the
Yes.
most emphasis on. And then I personally use carbohydrate as a very strategic tool, placed very strategically in the day around training, to reap the benefits of it. And then after that training session is over, those carbs are completely gone, yielding no net detrimental side effect.
Yeah.
And it works phenomenal for all the clients that I work with who use it or adopt that strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely something I keep hearing from a lot of top level athletes. It seems like once you really start to train super, super high intensity, it's a lot of people that I've spoken with are still, even carnivores, like they will tell me, I'm still like not 100% sure if I would benefit from adding some carbs, maybe just because of my athleticism,
Mhm.
although I also know about a lot of top level athletes that are purely carnivore. Dr. Anthony Chafee has been
Sure.
interviewing a bunch of them. I've been saving them. I need to be watching those. So it's been done in both ways. We don't have the studies on a carnivore or animal-based diet, like without versus with, to have this large sample size and the control and the treatment to like tell you with confidence what you should be doing. All I can say for me is that as your dopamine goes up, your D2 receptors are elevated. If you're an athlete, they're high. We are not going to be living in fear all the time from the carbohydrate. And if you feel like you're constantly triggered and being afraid, then maybe you haven't really tackled the root cause of your addiction, which is why I focus all of my recent content on that, to tackle the root cause of addiction with that dopamine upregulation.
Sure. Yeah. And the fact that I can achieve, 4.5% body fat, taking in 39 grams of rice-based carbohydrates
Yeah.
45 minutes prior to training every day,
Yeah.
clearly it wasn't a death sentence for me.
Right.
But, I used it as a tool,
Right.
and it represented a scant amount of my daily energy intake. I mean, every meal that I consume throughout the day is some version of meat and possibly some from eggs. I'll go through a dozen eggs a day. I go through a bunch of red meat throughout the day, a little bit
Yeah.
of fish, a little bit of poultry, whatever I'm into. I mean, that's all I'm eating.
Yeah.
And then that one moment, 40 minutes prior to training, I'll have a
Yeah.
small amount of carbohydrate that I tolerate well,
Yes.
and use that for high intensity muscular contractions. And the other thing is, it is important in the anabolic process to have a little bit of insulin secretion. You don't need a tidal wave of insulin coming in throughout the day. Clearly, we know that is bad.
Right.
But to have a bump in insulin production, and insulin is an anabolic hormone, to have that benefit in that to work into that process is a benefit. So I'm going to take in that small amount of carbohydrate prior to training. I'm going to train super high intensity. I'm going to burn through that amount of carbohydrate during the workout. By the conclusion of that workout, those carbohydrates are completely gone. I will have this amazing pump. I will be extremely vascular. I'll be able to, properly assess my physique at the conclusion of that workout. And then I go back to my normal way of eating, which is, protein and fat based, animal based. And it's worked phenomenal for me. It's worked phenomenal with my clients. I've got high level competitors that are winning medals standing on stages in the NPC doing it the exact same way.
Yeah.
And,
they're all doing the carbs.
They're all doing
I mean,
it.
I don't think there's any competitor. Maybe like I can count them, on one hand, probably, that I know.
Right.
That
and again, back to a previous point. I mean, what is a physique competition? It's an aesthetic.
Right. We're not talking.
That you're being judged by judges who have been competing their lives, and this is all they do. And if I'm working with you and you're 2 days out from stage, you and I are sitting down and we're meticulously mapping out your carb up. There are people out there going, carb up? What is he saying? But what I'm doing is I'm going to take you through a final depletion phase in that final week.
Yeah.
And your training will reflect that, your macros will reflect that, and then we will systematically start to fill you back up with carbohydrates that are going to just invade your muscle bellies and in glycogen reload. And it's going to fill up your muscles like a dry sponge getting water and just fill up. And that, and we do specific strategies to pull any remaining subcutaneous fluid from between the skin and the muscle into the muscle strategically.
Yeah.
So when you wake up Saturday morning, ready to go to your competition and just stand on stage in the pre-judging at roughly 10 a.m., we've got it strategically mapped out to that little IV drip of carbohydrate that's just going to systematically fill you up. And you're going to stand on stage looking like you're carved out of wood. I mean, that's what we do. And to not have your client do that just because it goes against your whatever. I mean, once again, I keep beating this poor dead horse, that's not in the best interest of the person that you're trying to help be the best that they can possibly be in that moment.
Yeah. It's just so much easier for people to look at it a black and white situation, because that means they don't have to spend the hundreds of hours that we spend on education and learning the stuff so it can better help others, right? It's a lot of information, but if you don't have the time to do all this research, or it's not your interest to do all this research, then of course, it's a lot easier to just think of it as a black and white end of story. Let's move on,
Absolutely. 100%.
Have you heard of Keto Savage's method of using sodium or electrolytes instead to do that,
Absolutely. And if you combine that with carbohydrates, it doubles it. It makes it twice as effective.
That's why you're like, add all the salt to the honey.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought you were nuts.
To take a competitor to the competition stage and not do a systematic carb up, I think is criminal. That's just my opinion. People can attack me all they want. Unless there's some specific reason why that client just can't have that. And that's fine. That's fine.
Like some autoimmune condition or something.
Right. This is about the client. This is about the client. But yes, sodium plays a role. Yes, water plays a role. And with that, carbohydrate plays a role. If somebody said to me, I'm going to take this competitor and I'm going to take them to the stage and I'm going to deplete them and do this, and then right before we go on stage, I'm going to do a fat and sodium load, and bring them to the stage, I'm gonna be like, that's great. It's a damn shame you didn't do the carbs too, because we could have took that really great to amazing and optimal. You fell short. So though I have seen these coaches present, look at what my client did in their competition on Saturday. Didn't they look great? And they did it with loading on fat and sodium. I'd be like, well, that's great. Good for them. I'm really happy for them. Too bad they didn't take it to the level that I would have taken it to, and probably maybe would have placed 2 positions higher. And I'm not trying to be mean or harsh.
No.
I'm not, I'm just saying, I've paid my dues, and I've been doing this shit for a long time, and I've been working in the trenches with real human beings 5 to 6 days a week for 30 years, and steeped heavily in the hardcore bodybuilding scene, the physique competition scene. I even took my daughter to a first place win in her first competition in the NPC, because guess what? Dad knows what the hell he's doing, right? So yeah, and my daughter ate very animal based, very keto carnivore at 20 years old. And what did I do for her? The Friday and the Saturday morning prior to her standing on stage, a structured, systematic, meticulous carbohydrate and sodium load. I mean, that's just what you need to do if you
Yeah.
want to be your absolute best.
Yeah.
So, and I don't apologize for that. It's just what works.
Yeah.
It may go against what's hip and cool in the cardio and the carnivore scene right now, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to make people look fucking amazing and be the best version of themselves that they can possibly be. And if I'm to be faulted for that, I don't care. Go right ahead. I can take it. I'm a tough guy.
Have you worked with WBFF athletes?
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with, every division, you name it. I've been there. I've done
So
everything.
what percent body fat higher would you say WBFF bikini division athletes usually are as compared to the NPC? Because they definitely appear to be much softer than the NPC
Absolutely. Yeah.
athletes.
They're on average anywhere from 3 to 5 points higher on their
Wow,
body fat
5%
level.
higher. That's
Yeah, I've seen 5%. Yeah, for sure. So that's, and for what that is, that's fine. If that's what you want to do, I say, do it all day long and crush it and be the best you can be. But, if I'm going to spend 8 months to a year in rigorous contest prep to do that thing that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life, then I'm going to do it to the absolute optimum peak level and be as amazing as I can be, and make sure you take lots of damn pictures.
Oh,
you
for sure.
know?
I think it's
So
totally maintainable, though, the
yeah.
WBF. Yeah, you don't even
Oh
need
yeah, for sure.
PEDs or drugs or whatever, I think.
Yeah. No, and I've worked with enhanced competitors, not many.
Hmm.
And I've worked with, the overwhelming majority of the competitors I've worked with are 100% natural, and even in the NPC where there's no drug
Oh,
testing.
really?
And I've never had below a top 3 finish. And that's, I've had scores of clients place top 3, and even had 2 class winners in the NPC, completely natural, competing against people who are on gear or certain anabolics.
Wow.
Because, when I was competing, I always said, listen, I know I got good genetics.
Mm.
I got into heavy strength training way back in 1993 because I recognized that I was a hyper responder. I put on muscle quickly and I worked my ass off. And back in those days, in the hardcore bodybuilding 90s, it was understood: kill yourself, have no life. And that's what you do if you're in the bodybuilding world. So that's what I did. So to be fair, I mean, sure, I had decades of time in the gym, and I've built a lot of muscle maturity, and I had a lot of lean mass, for my age, even in my 40s, because I still trained super hard. So making that transition into competition, I knew that for me to be successful, I was going to have to outwork and out diet everyone. And that was the way I looked at it. I was going to out diet your ass. I mean, it's a funny story that I tell a lot. Again, if I'm 4 to 6 weeks out, you could have walked into my kitchen, true story, ask my wife and daughter. You could have walked into my kitchen, you would see 3 large Yeti coolers on my kitchen floor. All 3 coolers had padlocks on them. Contained within those Yeti coolers was everything that I was not allowed to eat, which was practically everything. And all I was eating 4 to 6 weeks out was white fish, egg whites with 1 yolk, 97% lean ground beef, ground lean turkey, chicken breast that I would even meticulously cut the fat off. And I allowed myself this unbelievable transgression, this huge cheat daily of 1 level teaspoon of almond butter a day. And I would also take in 2 to 3 teaspoons of macadamia oil or avocado oil, or I would have a small amount of coconut oil in my morning black coffee. This was all I ate for the last 4 to 6 weeks. And let me tell you something, my palate changed so much as it does. In those last few weeks, that almond butter tasted like the greatest thing that I'd ever put in my mouth in my entire life. When you suffer like that, I would have eaten a flip-flop and probably enjoyed it. I probably would have. But that's the level that I knew I was going to have to take. And one of the greatest compliments I ever had, plus I had the opportunity to instill some wisdom on a young guy, is in 2019, I won the heavyweight open category, which is all heavyweights of all ages. And here I am 50 years old and I won the class, and I was competing against guys in their 20s and 30s, which was pretty cool. I was very proud of that. And, after the show, one of the guys that I beat, who was 27 years old, came up to me and he's like, "How did you do that? You totally kicked my ass." And I said, "I outworked your ass. I dieted harder than you. I suffered more than you. I trained harder than you. And I need you to learn that." True story. In 2021, I did a big national qualifier show in Charlotte, North Carolina, which earned me the right to go to nationals and compete with everybody in the country. That same kid was actually working for the promoter that day at the competition. He saw me and sought me out. The guy was probably 30 pounds heavier, looked absolutely amazing.
Wow.
He came running up to me, scared the shit out of me. And he's like, "I want to thank you." I'm like, "Who are you? And what is this about?" He's like, "I'm the guy that you beat back in 2019, and you told me you just outworked my ass. So I've been working my ass off ever since. And now I'm trying to get, I'm trying to get my pro card, and I expect to get that this year. And I just wanted to say thank you for that." And I was like, I could have passed out on stage that day.
Wow.
It didn't matter. That made my day.
Yeah.
Because I was able to take this young guy and give him that little bit of harsh, in-your-face advice that changed the course of his training for the next couple of years. And, he was working towards being an IFBB pro, and the guy just looked absolutely stunning. But, you got to work. You got to be the freak in the room. That's what you have to do. And you never regret that choice once you make it and once you travel that path.
I cannot add anything to this. It's like just gem after gem. I love it. Thank you so much, Rob. Let's end this by, I was gonna say a piece of advice, but you just said it. Just outwork everybody. That's it. It's very simple. So where can people find you, Rob, so they can work with you, connect with you?
Yeah, I would love if you would entertain the idea of maybe subscribing to my YouTube channel. I mean, that's what we do, right? And maybe hopefully you'll honor me by putting the link in the show description. Or just simply go to robgoodwin.com, and that's where all my coaching and services and other shenanigans are located.
Yeah.
And I also tend to stir shit up on Instagram, and that's Rob Goodwin Official. Any of those, I would be completely honored and stoked if you would just, visit me over there. And if you have any questions, I'm the type of guy that answers questions and loves feedback. And I'm always happy to help any way I possibly can. I just really appreciate everybody out there.
Fantastic. Yeah, and we have our Instagram handles popping up on screen, and I'm going to post all of the direct links to your website, YouTube, and Instagram also in the description box below of this YouTube video, so people can find that very easily. Thank you so much, Rob. It has been a pleasure to connect with you.
No, I knew we were going to get along. I love your content, but after this interview today, we are on the same page, and it's super damn cool. And I just really, really want to thank you for this opportunity and this experience. And I hope we can do this again soon.
Absolutely. I cannot wait. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us. If you enjoyed this content, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell icon so YouTube alerts you every time I post a new video. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.